Good evening from your nation's capital. I'm Larry O'Connor, and we spoke earlier this week about the tyranny of the vaccine mandates at the federal level, in the military, where we have the Pentagon and the Biden administration actually questioning the validity of an individual American's faith, denying religious exemptions, the government telling a soldier that their religious faith is invalid. It's an outrage. But instead of talking about the big picture, let's talk about how this affects individuals. These are human beings at stake, and these vaccine mandates have been used as a weapon against your fellow Americans. Joining us right now is one of those Americans who's had it up to here, and he's fighting back. He's Eric Flannery. He's the owner of the Big Board restaurant here in Washington, D.C., and his lawyer, Robert Alt, president and CEO of the Buckeye Institute. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And Counselor, honestly, I got to say, you dressed down for court. It's impressive. Oh, no, you're Eric, the restaurant owner. Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Easy mistake tonight.
Understood. No, Eric, of course, I appreciate you being here. Your restaurant and the story behind how the D.C. government has cracked down on you, you've become a bit of a cause celeb, a local hero. Congressmen, senators, they made a pilgrimage from Capitol Hill to stand by you in solidarity. Tell me a little bit about what happened here with regard to what was known as the vaccine passports.
So when D.C. implemented the vaccine passports, and we decided that we weren't going to participate.
This was a rule that said if you didn't show a vaccine card, you couldn't get into a restaurant, an establishment like yours. And it made your employees sort of, they had to be a security check on your customers, right?
They wanted us to enforce government-sanctioned discrimination against everybody walking through our door. And that's just not the American way. All we said was everybody is welcome, and we kept on welcoming everybody until they brought the full force of the D.C. government and shut us down with the health department, the liquor license, and the basic business license.
Yeah, and Mr. Alt, as Eric's lawyer here, we've spoken before, and I know that this was nothing short of bullying and big government tyranny. These laws were used as a weapon against your client.
Oh, absolutely. And it was clear he was singled out because he had this tweet. You know, again, we've all seen more incendiary tweets than "everyone is welcome." But literally 3 separate agencies shut him down. And then even after they rescinded the vaccine passport requirement, the requirement that everyone show their ID, they still kept him closed. Even after they dropped the mask requirement, they still kept him closed. Even after we fought and got him reopened, they kept on fighting to fine him for those previous violations. It's clear, quite frankly, that they were seeking to make an example out of him because he had the boldness to speak up about this.
What do you say to individuals who say, listen, public health is a civic concern. City government, county government, even the federal government, they need to focus on this. It's for the greater good. It's for the good of the citizenry. And therefore, they determined, through their elected representatives or the people of Washington, determined that this mandate was necessary for public health.
And that ends up being the problem, how it was actually implemented, because in fact they ended up short-circuiting the process and the democratic checks that are in place. Really goes to the heart of this lawsuit. The Constitution doesn't sleep, even during a pandemic, perhaps especially during a pandemic. They violated the law in terms of how it is that they implemented these rules. D.C. is a special case. Congress has exclusive jurisdiction to actually regulate in the district. They've delegated some of that authority, but every piece of legislation that the D.C. Council passes has to be submitted to Congress for review for 30 days. There's one narrow exception. You can pass an emergency statute, which can only be in effect for 90 days. They went ahead and stacked these for over 2 years. So like at day 89, they would re-up it?
They would
re-up it, and sometimes they were even so sloppy, they re-upped it for over 100 days. So they violated it, the terms on its face. But then they went one step further. So they've now violated the law. So how is it that you keep this in place? You close the courts. They literally put a provision in that said, during the state of emergency, if you're injured by one of these acts, you can't get into court. So for over 2 years, the courthouses in D.C. were closed to Eric Flannery and to other people who were injured by these rules.
And Eric, you really were injured by this. If you could just, in a brief amount of time here, lay out exactly what effect this had on your establishment. And by the way, the people who work for you, this is their livelihood.
It is their livelihood. And they shut us down for almost 2 months, 57 days where we were shut down, when the maximum shutdown in D.C. for the most onerous offenses, only 30 days. it's close to driven me bankrupt.
Yeah.
I am day to day on trying to keep the place open right now, and the additional effects of labeling me as a threat to public health and safety when I absolutely was not in any way, it just cascades along the lines.
Although there is an upside to this because your story was out there, people rallied behind you. When you were open, it seems like I said, you became a cause celeb. You were a local hero here. A lot of people who still embrace freedom in this town, they became regulars.
And I am so grateful for everybody. And it's not just them. It's a lot of our regulars from before that time that are still coming in. People are opening up, looking around, and asking why we were doing all of these things when they don't really make sense.
Yeah, and it should be pointed out, you're a Navy veteran, you wore the uniform, you were willing to give your life if necessary for the freedoms of this country, usually on behalf of another country who doesn't enjoy these freedoms. So I think it resounds even more so in your case, Eric.
No, I was Navy vet for 12 years, and I mean, I believe in this country, I believe in what we are, I'm willing to fight for this country, and I have fought for it, and I think that's what I'm doing now, is fighting for everybody whose rights have been unjustly taken from them by their own government.
And they've still been taken away, Counselor. But to jump on that, but also tell us about your victories, because every time you've pushed on this, you've actually, when you have your day in court, it's turned out pretty good.
Yeah, no, we've had a series. I mean, first, after he was shut down by 3 separate agencies, we were able to negotiate to get him reopened. Then they came after him for the additional fines. We had an administrative law judge who ruled against the D.C. Department of Health on the fines just earlier this week, and then now we've gone ahead and filed this federal lawsuit.
Yeah, you're going on the offense, so let's get into this, because this really is where the rubber is. Look at how happy you are now. Now you're taking it to them, right? You are a vet from the Navy. How are you going on offense? What's the lawsuit?
The lawsuit challenges the underlying authority for these actions, and this really goes to the larger principle. This case is about a little bit of money, but a whole lot of principle, and it goes to the fact that the D.C. government didn't have the authority to implement these rules to begin with, and that's important because right now, the problem is pandemics aren't like Vegas. What happens during the pandemic doesn't just stay in the pandemic. During this, we started hearing people talking about cases from 1905 involving vaccination. We don't want to allow these abuses to go unchecked.
How can people help? Because this doesn't come free.
So 2 things. Number 1, Eric, who again has been struggling, has a GiveSendGo account.
And it is GiveSendGo/everybody is welcome, which everybody is still always welcome at the big board.
That's the controversial, cancelable message at the big board. And the other way that people can help is if they live in the D.C. area, if they're coming to visit here, go to the big board.
And that's absolutely the best way that anybody can help me. And it is a way that I always tell people that the best way to show us is to come in and then come back, because we've done a good job in serving you.
So, and then if they want to support the litigation, they can go to buckeyeinstitute.org and contribute there. We're able to provide free legal assistance to them because of the generosity of our donors. But here, I think there's a way that you and I can help out, Eric, which is to say, I noticed a difference in our ties today.
Oh, here we go.
And our 2 teams, you're a Michigan fan, I'm an Ohio State fan, are going to be meeting here in November.
I love it when a story ends up with a happy ending, and of course the happy ending will be the Saturday after Thanksgiving when the Wolverines pound the Buckeyes. That's coming up next. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.